What's up, everybody? Welcome. It is a very, very special edition of the Occupy Fantasy Podcast. I am Brian Jester, co-founder, co-host here at OccupyFantasy.com. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and if you've followed us before, if you've listened to any of our podcasts before, you know that we are mostly a DFS site, a daily fantasy site. But when opportunities like this come around once a year, we have to let you guys in on some secrets. And there's no bigger secret than props and how profitable they are, especially on Super Bowl Sunday. You'll see a lot of sites out there, a lot of DFS sites even talking about which props to bet and how to make money. But we've done it here for close to 10 years now. We really want to help you guys. There's still 7 hours left until this game starts. So let's jump into it. We have two very special guests today. Waleed, my normal co-host, is out with the flu. Like 5% of the country has the flu, I heard. So wish him to get better. But first guest we have today is my brother, first and foremost. Secondly, our chief data officer at OccupyFantasy.com. Ignore the swelling in his face. I'll let him tell that story. But Moose, what's up, man? How's it going?
Hey, what's going on, Brian? Doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. So you can follow Moose on Twitter at CFB_Moose. Now, our second guest, he's actually live in Vegas, so it gives us some credibility here. He's out there betting the props himself, putting his hard-earned money on these props in the sportsbooks out there. If you've joined our Periscopes before, you may have seen his name in the chat. It's Mike Carey at MC in the DMV32 on Twitter. What's up, Mike? How's Vegas treating you out there?
Vegas is great, man. I was already down at the book this morning, putting in some bets. The lines are starting to show up. A lot of people making their moves this morning.
Yes. If you've ever been out to Vegas for the Super Bowl, quick word of strategy: get your bets in early, because once Sunday morning hits, lines are around the corner. You can stand in line for about an hour. Really not the best place to be. So glad you got your bets in already. I know you and I were talking yesterday. You were down at the Superbook. So, Mike, why don't you tell the people here about our little history we've had with Vegas and, what we've been doing going out there to make these prop bets?
You're bobbing in and out there, Brian. What was the question?
No worries. So, why don't you tell the people about our history? You and I and Moose has gone out a couple of times too. Our history with Vegas and going out there for the Super Bowl, and why it's so important that we go out there to place these bets on these props.
Right. So this is the 7th year that we've gone out for the Super Bowl. Every year we get about anywhere between maybe 20 props to 50. But these are all a lot of these props. We're trying to maximize our expected value here. So maybe they're not the greatest lines, but we're expecting these bets to come in based on the percentages of how these outcomes happen throughout the NFL season. For one game, you can go in on the side and the total, but there's a lot of opportunity here. Brian mentioned I was down at the Superbook earlier this weekend, and hundreds of props. So there's edges that you can find throughout the sheets. So we can run through some of those that we found whenever you're ready, Brian.
Yeah, sure. So Moose, first up here on the agenda is what we talk about, and the biggest reason these props are profitable, and especially these game props, as we'll get into a couple here. We call them our every year bets, our annual bets, our usual bets, right? And these are bets that we look to make every single year when the Super Bowl comes around. And for two reasons. First and foremost, the lines that they place on these props, they don't really change from year to year. Maybe in the last couple of years, they've increased the odds to reflect the actual outcome a little more. But really, it's generic lines that you see every year. And two, the public, Moose, for whatever reason, hates these game props. So why don't you let us in on why some of these props are so good, and maybe some of the ones that you're looking at today?
Yeah, definitely. So these game props are very simple ones. First score touchdown. It's going to be a score in the first 7 minutes, 30 seconds, field goal, stuff like that. And as Brian alluded to, the line stays pretty much the same. I don't know why they do it. But really, if you just use historical data, I'm just going to go for one, for example. Will both teams have a 33-yard or greater field goal? And right now on 5 times, you're looking at the line around minus 125. 130 at some other places. But really, that's only but if you look at the historical data from this season, just with the New England and Philly, that's only happened in New England games 5 out of the 18 games and 8 out of the 18 games, less than 50%. So I don't even think the books are really looking at historical data. I think they're just putting out the same lines every year, and we just smack them every year.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And a lot of times these game props, they base them on the total of the game and the spread. They don't really account for teams' tendencies, and that's a big deal, especially. So I'm going to you, Mike Carey, looking at bets like, will both teams score in the final 2 minutes of the first half, or will the first team that scores wins the game? Some of these bets like this, maybe for an average game that has a 4-point spread and a 48-point total, it's an even line. But when you look at two teams like the Patriots and the Eagles, especially these teams who are kind of advanced in their analytics and their game planning, these bets hit way more often than the line indicates.
Yeah, a lot of these props, some of them are we can are plus odds, like first touchdown, not passing, first scores, field goal, safety. I mean, you're kind of rooting against things that a casual fan wouldn't want to see in a game anyways. Casual fans don't want to see field goal battle. Casual fans want to see big touchdowns. I mean, that's another one of ours. Longest touchdown, under.
Right, yeah. So I think in this game it's 50.5, the longest touchdown under. So, yeah, basically what you're doing these game props is betting against what the public wants to see. And if you've ever been out to Vegas, one of our favorite things when we're out there, Mike Carey, is just listening to people in the sports and in the sports books and having conversations about what they're betting. And you can see why these sports books make so much money just because of how the average person thinks. Now we're in the top 1% of people who are doing research on these prop bets, where you look at the other 99% of people who come into Vegas for the Super Bowl, they're just looking at the sheet and it's overwhelming. They're like, oh, this looks good, and they're betting it. No real rhyme or reason, just what they want to see. But some of the things you hear out there in the sports books, I'm sure you've heard some more this time around of just how awful the public is at betting props.
Oh man, this week has been especially poor for the public, I'd say. I don't know if your users are following gambling Twitter a bunch, but there's a lot of information out there about how the handle for the props is the highest that it's ever been. So people are, I think the increase in fantasy sports, people are looking about individual results for players and think they can find an edge there. But if you're walking up to the book and you have all of the sheets and you're making bets on the fly, that is not a successful strategy to be profitable with props. I had a woman this morning when I was down at the book, very nice, but couldn't find where the total was on the sheet. So, and of course she went with the over, even though the over was higher than it was on the sheet.
Surprise. Big surprise there. Yeah, public loves overs.
Huge surprise.
Yeah, I mean, they love overs, especially in games, but also in player props. You'll see a lot of player props being bet over. A lot of So
I mean, if you bet all the overs on every single New England running back, I mean, that's just not going to happen. It's impossible. So, there's not a lot of yards to go around for everybody, and these games can be really tight.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. And Moose, I saw something on Gambling Twitter the other day talking about how it seems like the public is betting two different games when it comes to the side and when it comes to the props. These bets are correlated to the outcome of the game. These bets are correlated with each other. So, talk about how you want to make sure that bets make sense. Something like if you bet the under in the first quarter, you probably don't also want to bet first score as a touchdown.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, just take a look here. The first quarter total is 10.5, and if you think first quarter touchdown right there, then you just need any other score. Well, some places have a 9.5. So yeah, if you think first quarter touchdown and you're betting first quarter under, that's just a losing gamble right there, because all you need is one other score. Now the other correlate would be is first quarter touchdown and over first quarter. That makes more sense, because then all you would need is just another score, field goal, touchdown, anything, and you win both bets. That's a really highly correlated bet right there.
Right. So it's something not a lot of people think about is correlated bets, because a lot of things that are going to happen in this game are going to be the result of something else happening in this game. And speaking of quarter bets, I know Mike Carey, you and I, we always love the kind of the back and forth total bets in each quarter: under first quarter, over second quarter, under third quarter, over fourth quarter. But a big part of that is finding the right lines. You'll see over in the second quarter at 14.5 in some spots, and under at 13.5 at some spots. So while you've been out there so far, I know you've been to a couple books down in the Caesars books and out into, of course, the famous Superbook. How have the lines differed? I know we're great at line shopping, but is it the same out there this year as it has been in the past, where lines are different around the town?
Yeah, it seems like around town, since the total has been at 48 or 48.5. The totals for each quarter have been pretty solid. On Friday at the Superbook, we got 9.5. First quarter 14, second quarter, which is really solid, like that, right at 14. Saw it at 13.5 earlier in the week, so I got back up to 14. That's solid. Third quarter 9.5, fourth quarter 13.5. But again, we're talking about like correlating bets. We're also, on will there be a score in the last 3.5 minutes of the game? Yes. So, that 13.5 looks good. You get 2 scores probably in the fourth quarter. You can get over there. In the second quarter, will there be a score in the final 2 minutes of the half? I think Brian sent out a tweet earlier this week about how in 14 meaningful games, the Patriots have scored in the final 2 minutes 10 times, and the Eagles, actually, their percentage was incredibly high as well. So, you find these small tendencies are kind of being ignored by the book, and that's where you can find some edges.
That's exactly right. And Moose, you and I were looking at that exact bet this morning. Will there be a score in the final 2 minutes of the first half of the game? And the discrepancy in the lines between books is ridiculous. So talk about the 2 books you saw that line at today, and how people can take advantage.
So,
sorry, I forgot what the name. You got it.
No, Bruce, go ahead. You can see more books sitting at a laptop than I can right now.
Definitely. So, probably one of the better sites that has props for online. You probably want to go with 5 Dimes. They're not going to cut you off pretty soon. But just a simple comparison. There's a score in last 2 minutes of the first half on 5 Dimes. Yes is minus 320. You go over to someplace like Bovada that caters towards more public bets. Their line for the exact same bet is minus 275. So right there, you're saving 50 cents, something like that, 45 cents, which definitely increases your expected value if that's something that you're going to bet.
Right. It increases your expected value if you're making multiple bets, if you're making a handful of bets like we normally do, if you're betting year to year like we normally do. Saving that 50 cents on a single prop adds up massively over the course of 50, 100, 200 bets. So good point there, Moose. What about player props, guys? So we've talked about game props so far. Mike Carey, I'll go to you first. Player props, generally, you want to bet early in the week because they get pounded into shape pretty quickly. Let's talk about one specifically. I know Jay Ajayi, you're big on him today and betting the over on his props. How did his lines for his rushing yards, rushing attempts, et cetera, how did they look when you got out there, Wednesday evening or Thursday?
Yeah, so I checked in Saturday at the Superbook. Jay Ajayi's rush yards over were 61.5. His rush attempts are 14.5, and his longest rush is also 14.5. I've seen it some offshore books where the yards were at 63.5, but rush attempts are the same at 14.5. I really like Ajayi. If you're watching the Eagles' 2 playoff appearances so far, I'm not understanding why they're ever taking Ajayi out of the game. He's running hard. He's running north to south. LeGarrette Blount is easily a step behind him. Corey Clement is maybe good as a third down scat back, can make a few catches out of the backfield, but Ajayi was where the Eagles' bread is buttered, and I'm only hoping, the only rationale I can think of is Peterson knew that if we're going to play the Patriots, we're going to have to run the ball to keep Brady off the field, and Ajayi is going to be our guy. So I'm big on Ajayi, and I love how the Eagles are spreading it out in the 11 personnel. Brian said an article out earlier this week detailing how the 11 personnel is really the Achilles heel for the Patriots. They're not very good at defending it, and Ajayi runs out of that personnel incredibly well. So I'm big on Ajayi today.
Yeah, so that article I tweeted out was by Warren Sharp. Does great work with game planning and game play calling analytics. So go check that out. It's on my timeline. Love that, Mike. I think Ajayi's in for a big game. Love all of his overs today. Moose, what about some other player props? And I know in the past we've had success betting no on will a player score a touchdown. And we've had success on role players, guys who see a prop of 7.5 receiving yards or over and under a half a catch. Truth be told, everyone loves betting that a player will score a touchdown, but as we alluded to earlier, not everybody can score. So what are your thoughts on how people can take advantage of will an individual player score a touchdown?
Yeah, so that's so tough with both players both teams having such a non-static lineup through the year. With running backs, you don't know if Mike Gillislee's going to play. It's very tough, but there are some players that I like. I do like James White not to score a touchdown. That's probably one of my bigger ones. Yeah. Mike Carey, what are you thinking about anyone doing no touchdowns?
I don't have a no touchdown. If I had to pick one long shot for first touchdown, I did see at the Superbook they had LeGarrette Blount at 12-1. Again, Peterson loves to go to Blount down in the red zone. I don't think he's getting a lot out of it, but anything under 5 yards he's been giving to Blount in the red zone. You have to expect the Eagles to get the ball first. The Patriots win the toss. They always defer. So that that might be one if you're looking for a higher odds play, 12-1, 20-1, that type of thing. That would be one I like. I do like. You were just talking about James White. I do like him the over with yards at the Superbook. They had 10.5, and I've seen 10.5 offshore. He's going to get carries when the Patriots are down near the red zone because they like to not only rush him out to the edge, but throw out to him out of the backfield. He's going to be used down there. And you can see that in both the Jaguars game and the Titans game. Fantasy holders for Dion Lewis had to be pissed when James White was just stealing all of his touchdowns. Dion Lewis gets you all the way down there, and then White comes in for the last 10, 15 yards. And he's incredibly effective down there.
Yeah, pretty annoying. Yeah, for those playing DFS or any type of playoff count, yeah, super annoying. But
if you happen to be in a certain playoff fantasy league with other hosts of this podcast,
no names.
You may not have been too happy. Yeah.
What do you think about Brian? Let me ask you this: what do you think about Ertz not scoring a touchdown? Right now, that's currently minus 190
for him not to score a touchdown.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I think one of the things you have to look at here is the Patriots match up well with tight ends. They don't give up a ton of volume, a ton of fantasy points in general to tight ends, but generally volume outweighs matchup, especially when it comes to tight ends. So Ertz has been getting peppered with targets since Nick Foles came under center. I expect them to do the same today. So I think 190 is a pretty fair line. I'm looking more toward those role guys, those guys who don't have every down roles as far as them not scoring the touchdown. And these role players are where you can spend a lot of money, or you can make a lot of money, and you can also look just absolutely nuts when you're rooting for them when the game is on. So Mike Carey, I know, just here are two quick examples. I know in the Baltimore 49ers Super Bowl, we bet Bernard Pierce not to score a touchdown, an ungodly amount for him not to score a touchdown. So every time he touched the ball, we were cheering against him, even though we had a Ravens ticket in our pockets. And Henry Hynowski, the fullback in the last Giants-Patriots game, we had him over, 3 or 4 yards, and he catches a 5-yard pass, and we were just high-fiving and going nuts, and everyone in this bar just thinks we're insane because we just cheered dramatically for a 5-yard fullback pass.
That was the first play of the game. Went a fullback pass for, I believe the total was 4.5 yards, and it hit right at 5, and probably needed a favorable spot from the referee there to even get to that. But and then he, I don't know when, took a nap for the rest of the game because he was not seen. He didn't have 1 more yard after that. But I think one of the ones that we've gotten burned on, I think, was Ted Ginn, no touchdown in the Panthers Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we were on the wrong end of that one. I mean, crazy things happen. Like, you get weird heroes in some of these Super Bowls. Sometimes these role players, they find some kind of niche to carve out a defense, and they can screw you over or make it a big payday for you.
That's definitely for sure. That's a great point. And a lot of bets you see, especially super sharp guys, they love saying, bet these long odds in the Super Bowl, bet no overtime, bet no missed extra point. But really,
no
safety. But just ask the people in the sports book of the last 8 or 9 Super Bowls how no safety has worked out for you. When you bet something with odds those low, right, it can ruin your entire day. And when you're betting something once a year, even though the expected value is tremendous, right? The odds are so tilted in your favor for betting no on these props. But one loss, a fluke loss, can really can wipe out all of your profits. And Moose, that's not something you really want to do when you're betting props once a year.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if you have to bet, $100 to win $1, that's not that good when you can spread $20 over 5 bets with just the same amount of expected value.
That's a great point. That's a really good point about spreading it out. So, all right, let's keep it moving. We got about 5-10 minutes here. We'll talk about some more stuff. Guys, any other bets that we haven't talked about specifically for this game that you think we may not normally look at, or we normally look at and we haven't hit on yet? I'll start with one. I think no touchback on the kickoff. The opening kickoff is a tremendous bet. You get plus money on it. If you follow the NFL at all, the Patriots are big on not kicking touchbacks since the touchback has been moved out to the 25-yard line. The Eagles are in the bottom 5 of touchback percentage. That line is completely off. So I think no touchback on the opening kickoff is a great bet. Mike Carey, what about you? Any other bets we haven't hit on yet that you think are interesting or the odds are off?
Sure. Actually, I thought Moose mentioned or a missed extra point. That might be a nice long odds bet. Jake Elliott has missed a couple of extra points, and he's not incredibly accurate from 37 yards or less, so which is on field goals, so basically about an extra point. You add those two together, and you're kind of like in the 70 to 80% range in accuracy, and I think the line is at plus 250, 260. This game is being played indoors. Gostkowski, he doesn't even need to get out there to kick it because it's in every time. Now I say that he's definitely going to miss today. But, nobody's going to be thinking in an indoor game there's going to be a missed extra point. And Elliott's a rookie. He's had, some issues. He's consistent from range, but short gimmies can be a problem sometimes. And that's maybe a lack of focus, which is going to be huge in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, good point there, Mike. What about Moose? What about you? Any other bets we haven't hit on yet that you think are interesting, or the odds are way off?
I think MVP, which normally isn't a good topic to talk about, but there's a couple books that actually have Nick Foles at around plus 500 or 5-1 to win MVP. While I think the Patriots are going to win, but if I had to pick MVP, that would be my pick. I don't see any other Eagles winning the MVP if Eagles win. And that means that it should kind of correlate towards the money line, but it's way off. I have that bet for entertainment purposes only. But yeah, I love him for MVP. I think it's definitely terrible. I think it's great odds. It's off a little bit.
Yeah, the odds are definitely off. Anytime you can get a quarterback who's remotely competent in the Super Bowl at plus 500 to win the MVP, especially when they're a small dog, so 4-point underdog. Just recently, last 10, 20 years, as the NFL has moved more towards the passing league, quarterbacks have won the MVP in the Super Bowl at a tremendous rate. So betting the quarterback to win the Super Bowl, especially if you like the Patriots and you want to bet the money line, honestly, you're just better off betting Tom Brady to win MVP. Is what, minus 170, it depends where you get it. But if the Patriots win, there's no way Brady doesn't win MVP. James White had like 1,000 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he still didn't win MVP last year. So Brady's the way to go if you want to bet. If you like the Patriots, just bet him to win MVP. Mike, what about Mike Harry? Any other MVP thoughts?
I like Foles. I mean, I think summed it up. It's a 2-horse race between Brady and Foles. I mean, you could have one of these, Von Miller type MVP. I mean, but I don't see anybody like excelling to that point on defense. Peterson's going to spread around between Ajayi and Blunt and Clement, and then the Patriots. Who knows who's going to play running back? You just know day of the game. Offensively, I don't see anybody else. Maybe Gronk, but how's he going to get the ball? It's going to come from Brady, and Brady will get all the credit.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you can't stress that enough. If you're going to bet a Patriots MVP, do bet Tom Brady. I know it's minus 150, minus 200, whatever it is, bet Tom Brady if you're going to bet Patriots MVP.
Well, a couple places actually have him down to a lot. I'm looking here as it Brady minus 110, Bet Online minus 120. So you will get a little bit lower if you shop around.
Once again,
that'd be great.
Shop around. Yeah, I mean, minus 110 for Brady to win MVP when their team is minus 190 or minus 170 right now. It's just insane. Yeah. So, all right, guys.
I do want to just go back to that real quick. Just go back to the Jake Elliott missed extra point. I'm looking here at his game logs. He's actually 80% for field goals outside of 30-plus yards, which isn't that good. In just that 30 to 39-yard range, he's only 57%. Granted, he's only had 7 attempts, but still, that's something to look at.
That's wild. Someone to be that accurate from deep and that terrible, honestly, from in that range. So good point out there, Moose. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Let's get Mike Carey out of here so he can go down and watch the games and enjoy his time out in Vegas. So, Mike Carey, we'll go to you first. What are your favorite 2 prop bets today that you think are the most positive expected value, or just the biggest? We're not going to use the L word here, but your favorite bets today. 2 favorite props that people can take a look at today.
Well, I guess if you're looking for plus odds props that I like, it would be first score is a field goal or safety, and then first touchdown not passing.
Yep, those are 2 of our usual bets, and like you said, they kind of go against public opinion, and they normally hit more often than not, especially with these 2 teams and their tendency to run the ball in the red zone. So good calls there. Moose, let's go to you. Your 2 favorite prop bets for today.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go with Nelson Aguilar pass receptions over 3.5. That is really good. And then I'm also going to go with any team converts to 4th down. Just a little background information on that. In the Patriots, that's happened 78% of the time, and in Philadelphia games, it's happened 67% of the time. And odds imply it's only about the current betting odds only imply about 60%. So that's something to look at.
Yeah, and that's another bet to shop around too. I mean, I've tweeted out some articles this week about how the Eagles have used analytics to go for it more often on 4th down. We'll definitely see a handful of 4th down attempts today, and and I think yes, 4th down conversion is a great bet. So good call there, Moose. All right, let's go to me. My two favorite props for today. I will go with the usual, no defensive or special teams touchdown. Probably down lifetime on this bet just because of all the crazy stuff that's happened.
When I put that bet in, I just said, why don't you hang on to this and I'll just walk away because this is a loser.
I mean, yeah, I'll very distinctly, I will say, in the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl, we got our food at halftime. We're sitting down. The second half's about to kick off. And, Mike, you and I look at each other and we say, all right, as long as this kickoff isn't returned for a touchdown, we're looking good. And then literally 30 seconds later, kickoff return for a touchdown. So just as quickly as bets can be looking good, they can turn around very quickly, especially with that bet particularly. But the odds generally
that one kills a bunch. Those types of plays, no special teams and defensive touchdowns is tied the longest touchdown. Right. Those defensive and special teams touchdowns can be, either kickoff is all the way back. The two defensive touchdowns the last couple of years, they broke the over on longest touchdown. So you can get hosed really bad on those types of plays.
You definitely can, but you just look at it. That's just going to inflate the value even more because there's been a crazy frequency of defensive touchdowns over the last few Super Bowls. So once again, great odds there, and I'll take it every year. Every year. And the other one I'll talk about here is the score in the final 2 minutes of the first half. Both these teams understand the importance of scoring right before halftime. The Patriots, in fact, we talked about this earlier, 16 of their 18 games have seen a score in the final 2 minutes of the first half. The Eagles, not as high, but I think 14 of their 18 meaningful games. Depending on where you get the odds, there were times before where we could get this minus 240. Just keep shopping. The public's going to bet no on this, so just wait as long as you can on this and try to bet it. Anything under minus 300 is in play here. So those are my two favorites. Moose, any final thoughts on Super Bowl props day or any advice for people before we get out of here?
Under on the national anthem. Pink has the article that Pink has the flu-like symptoms, so she's going to try and rush through it. I always bring back the memory. It was 3 years ago. I actually middled the national anthem, and that was the highlight of my betting career.
This is the hard-hitting analysis that you're tuning in for, middling the national anthem. So good call, that Moose. Mike Carey, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your Vegas trip to talk to us. Any final thoughts?
I think it's going to be a tight game. The total is tough. I originally thought over. I do have an over 48, but I think it's probably hitting the under 24-21 Eagles. Eagles are able to run it out and not give it back to Brady at the end of the game.
I like that call. Moose, I didn't ask you, what's your final prediction for the game?
Yeah, I'm probably the only one of the group that thinks this, but I think New England. I have it 37-24, New England.
Wow, you got a shootout here, and you got New England winning by almost 2 touchdowns. Okay, so we'll see how that works out. And once again, depending on how you think the game's going to play out, determines how you're going to bet some of these props. So
exactly.
I'll go final Eagles 27, Patriots 21. Appreciate everyone listening. Thanks. This is the live podcast. We'll have this up in about 30 minutes or so you can download it and listen to it on your phone. Mike Carey, appreciate you. You can follow him on Twitter at MC in the DMV32. Moose, you can follow him on Twitter at CFB_Moose. I'm Brian Jester at Brian Jester FF on Twitter. Appreciate you guys. Listen, still got 7 hours before kickoff. Go do some research on your props and let's make some money today. See you guys next time. Take care.
All right, see you.
See you.